Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer and career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. From career struggles and anxiety to feeling like nothing is ever going to work out, I'm here to explore all the messy stuff that breaks us down and builds us up. So join me as we transform ourselves and finally ditch the struggle. Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you're enjoying the new outro, which is much shorter. I started it for my 100th episode. That was the goal. It's half the length. I think I can still make it shorter, but I'm working on it. And yeah, no one really likes a long intro getting into the podcast. So also no one likes a lot of preamble before the topic. So let me dive right in. This is a job interview story, kind of a red flag story. I was reminded of this recently, and it's kind of a funny one. So I'm going to share it because it's a short one, I think, but it's good. And when I originally was going to tell the story, I was going to fully tell the company name, but now I'm not going to because I'm going to bring in someone else's story from their job interview, and I want to kind of keep that, anonymous. So I'm not going to tell the company's name, but don't worry, I've got more stories coming up where fully going to reveal company names because I was remembering a few other crazy job interviews I've had. This one was in the beauty industry, so big company. Their products sell at Shoppers Drug Mart. And I would say that if you're in Toronto and you work sort of in beauty or lifestyle, at some point, if you're a graphic designer, you have been asked to interview at this company. They are a big company. As I said, products are at Shoppers Drug Mart. They had some TV ads at one point, and I knew the brand. I got called in for an interview, and I feel like it's 2015. I'm usually pretty good for some reason of remembering years of interviews. I think it was 2015, and I was looking for a full-time job, I think, at the time. And I would have left a company where I was working on a lot of food packaging for Sobeys, a small agency, learned a lot there. The chicken sticker story. It would have been just after probably the chicken sticker story, which is an episode a few back. And I was looking for a job and got called in. All I knew was a graphic designer for a beauty product line, decent sized company. And I will say, I am always amazed at how many of these companies that are quite big, they're small but big. I think they're grossing in the millions, but they run like the tiniest entrepreneurial, crazy, disorganized dumpster fire of a company. This is the feeling I got. So, and I've worked for a lot of companies that I was shocked at how they run, because you would think that these big-ish companies would run more smoothly and have more staff and all that. I mean, when I worked at Blush Cosmetics, it was not a huge amount of staff for what was created and put out into the world, and budgets were tiny for certain things. There was a running joke that I had a no-frills budget for certain things. I would literally call the printer and I was like, okay, we got to do a print run on this thing. It's no-frills budget, so we need the cheapest you can do. But anyways, back to the job interview. I got called for this job interview. And I didn't know much about it other than it was a graphic designer in-house role. I liked being in-house. I was like, okay, I like getting to know the brand. I feel like it's a little bit more sane hours. It was downtown, and I walk into the job interview, and there was a woman interviewing me, and she had lots of energy. I wasn't sure about her from the get-go. We went through my portfolio. It seemed to be going pretty well. But then she explains to me that I would be the only graphic designer. This is it. The only in-house designer. Now, at this point in my career, I really was not interested in being that solo person. When I started out, it can be great because you have to take on a huge amount of responsibility, but you learn a ton. You just have a lot of autonomy. It's trial by fire. You just learn a ton. At this point in my career, I did not want that. And this is something to really get clear on where you are, what your bandwidth is, what kind of role you want in terms of responsibility, stress, pressure. If you are the only graphic designer, and I will say that this is probably for anyone, if you're the only accountant or the only, project manager, you are going to have a shit ton of work and it's all going to be on your shoulders. Taking vacation becomes almost impossible. Sick days you feel bad about it, you're stressed out about it. It's like, I really don't think it's a great way to live. And again, at this point in my life, I had done that. I'd been multiple times the only creative person executing, and I didn't want to do it at this point in my career. It just felt like super high pressure, super stressful, just too much. And as she's talking, and I'm hearing that I'm the only designer, I guess like my heart fell and I was like, this is not gonna vibe with me. And there was something about her that was just a little unhinged. Her energy was like flying away. Like she was just a little bit frantic, a little bit random with her thoughts. She was a little bit all over the place and ungrounded. And I was like, I'm not liking this vibe. I am getting like a streak of Cray. There's just something like she reminded me of some unhinged celebrity that would, let's say, call their assistant up at 3:00 in the morning and say, I need chocolate pudding. And then the person would arrive with chocolate pudding. And then the person would be like, I don't want chocolate pudding. I want butterscotch pudding. And the person would be like, but you asked for chocolate. She's like, absolutely not. I did not. And I got the vibe that she was going to do this kind of thing. Like, I asked for this and then you deliver it. And then she's like, I didn't ask for this. So I just got this feeling it wasn't great. And I mean, it went fine. I remember she really liked my shoes, and I think I lied and said they were from Nine West. I will tell you that they were from Payless. R.I.P. Payless. I miss it so much. They were nude patent leather pumps that I wore all the time, every job interview, and I wore them till they died. And I thought it was hilarious that she had her Louis Vuitton bag and all this fancy stuff, and she was commenting on how much she liked my Payless shoes. I don't know why that stands out, but it does. And so I left the interview and they followed up and they're like, okay, well, this is the best part of the project that you have to execute. Every graphic designer is rolling their eyes. This is a thing where they give you a take-home project and you have to execute it. And then that's for the next round of interviews. And then sometimes there's an interview after that and it just goes on and on. So at this point, I declined. I was like, I'm not going forward with it. I can't remember if this went through a recruiter or if this was just independent application. I think it was just an independent application. And I didn't go forward with it. And I just was like, this is not where I want to be. I just could tell that I would be so stressed out under so much pressure. And I think I needed a job. I don't think I was desperate. You know, I would say, like, if you need to pay your rent and you're desperate, you take what's in front of you. But I wasn't in that position. And I was like, I'm going to keep looking. I just feel like this woman is too unhinged. And I don't want to work under that. And I probably wouldn't have been able to define what it was about her that made me feel uncomfortable. But it was that she was ungrounded. She just, I thought she'd be really indecisive. And there was another partner I met. So there was two women and she was much different. She had a different vibe. They were probably the yin and the yang and balancing each other out. And she was okay. But the main one that was interviewing me, I was like, no. So cut to a few years later, I'm working at Blush Cosmetics and someone I ended up working with who was whip smart. She was amazing. Everyone who worked there actually was awesome at their job. And she was like, oh, somehow it came up a conversation. She's like, oh, I worked there and you do not want to work there. I don't even think she lasted a year. She's like, you do not want to work there. I was like, yeah, I know I dodged a bullet with that one. And then cut to a few, like maybe just a couple years ago now, I was in touch with a graphic designer and I was kind of keeping my eye out for jobs for her. She wanted to stay in the beauty industry. So I was keeping my eye out. And I don't know what it is, but everyone gets different job listings kind of posted to them. I guess the algorithm changes up for different people. And so if I see something interesting, I always send it to someone because they may not see it, even though they're probably keyword searching for the same thing. Anyway, I see a job pop up for this company and I sent it to her. And then I immediately followed with red flag, do not apply for this job. Because I thought if she's job searching and she's looking at beauty, she may think that this is like a good job to apply to. And I just thought, from my experience and also just hearing other people, this other woman who worked there, I was like, I don't think this is going to be a great fit. And I never tell anyone not to go for something or not to apply, but there were red flags. And she's like, oh gosh, I interviewed there and I'm never going to apply again. And she also had a friend work there and she did not have good things to say. But this is the funniest thing. Like, talk about red flags. So my friend who was looking for the job, let's call her Beth. Beth went to a job interview at this company a few years ago and during the interview, she had the same woman interviewing her that I had. The woman was doing her makeup and getting ready to go to an event. In the interview, the woman is doing her makeup and like zhuzhing herself up to go out to an event. So my friend Beth was like, well, it felt like it was a total chore to interview me. And Beth wrote, because she had texted me, really not the vibes. You think you're in a job interview and the person across from you is doing their makeup. I mean, I hear a lot of things. This is the first time I've ever heard this. And I would say that's officially a very large red flag. And I would go running out of that interview as quick as I could, maybe telling her that her blush looked a little too heavy. I don't know. Like, I just would be mad. I would be pretty mad. It's very disrespectful. And so she ran away from that job. I ran away from this job. But the point is, there's a couple things here. One, you do have to pay attention to the red flags coming up in a job interview. Again, I get if you're like, I have to get whatever is in front of me, and then you ignore them. I mean, I have actively and consciously ignored some red flags. When I went over to the shopping channel, it was a great experience, but there were definite red flags right from the beginning, and they came to fruition. So, but I knew what I was walking into, and I willingly walked that way. I was like, I'm going into this, and lasted 3 months. So you can ignore them if you want to, but there's usually a consequence to it. I know one person who went for a job interview, and they walked into the interview room, and they said it felt like a huge cloud, just like darkness descended upon the room. And they wouldn't necessarily be super spiritual. They wouldn't be into energy work as much as I would be or as conscious of it. Because this was quite a few years ago when people maybe didn't have the verbiage to describe this. But she said it just like this darkness washed over her, and it felt like it washed over the room. But she took the job because she really needed a job. And again, so she kind of knew what she was getting into, but she's like, I felt it. I got the warning sign on that first interview. I knew it. And it ended up being, in some ways, a great job, but really, really hard for her. So, weird. I hear things like this all the time. Weird things can happen in job interviews. But back to the red flag. So, number one, you really have to pay attention to the red flag. And then two, really get conscious of how much responsibility you want with the job and what kind of pressure you want to get involved in. And if you want to be the solo person in a company or in an organization, because it's a very different experience, and it's okay, and I talked about this a little bit in episode 99, to not want to have a super high pressure job or be in the position where everything is on your shoulders. And I think for me, that was definitely at that point in my career, I was so tired of feeling like everything was on my shoulders. And that is something that people pleasers will say all the time, that they feel the weight of the world on them, that they have that weight on their shoulders, that like whatever they do, it's not enough, that they have to keep delivering, especially if you're surrounding yourself with people who keep taking and taking and taking. And this woman, the one who had the streak of Cray, she definitely was a taker. She was going to keep taking until you were like dead on the floor. That was the feeling I got. And I can usually sense these people pretty quickly. And it's hard because I want to do a great job, but have to have that boundary, and you have to protect yourself. So really looking at when you're examining a role that you might be walking into, what is this going to look like for me? What is the meaning of this? What is the responsibility? And what do I actually want? Like, how much of this pressure do I want? How much responsibility do I want? And I just think we're living in a time where you're considered weak if you don't want to walk into something like that, if you don't want to be like having all of that weight on your shoulders, if you don't want to just be this crazy overworking superstar. Maybe this is just through my lens. I'm just, you know what? The fact is, a lot of these episodes, a lot of what I'm saying will be through the lens and the filter that I've experienced my career, right? So this is why I'm sharing them. But, there is that prism that I'm seeing things through. And I just recognize that walking into situations where everything is on me and I'm the only one responsible for delivering everything is not in my best interest. And the older I get, the more I have come to realize that I need to be sharing responsibility. I like collaboration. I have a few freelance clients where I'm just their only designer, but they only need me certain times of the year. And it's not pressure, pressure, pressure. They're not emailing me on weekends. Nothing makes me more mad than an email from a client on a weekend. I just think it's completely unnecessary. Unless, you're saving lives and doing things like that, or you're a lawyer, protecting or saving someone's life in some situation, or, their life is in your hands. But yeah, as a graphic designer, that's really not the case, right? So look at the red flags, really get clear on how much responsibility, pressure you want, and be honest with yourself. I tend to say this a lot about whether you want that, and kind of have the courage to say, you know what? No, I'm going to walk away from that. And I really did have to walk away from that potential opportunity. I feel like I could have got the job if I had kind of kept going with it. Who knows? That I can't say for sure. But I definitely had the skill set to kind of get the job. I knew I could deliver what they were looking at because it was some packaging design, the advertising, all that stuff. Not a lot of designers have packaging experience, so that kind of gave me an advantage. But I was like, do I really want to be a part of this party? Do I really want to join this circus? And that's really what I felt it was, a circus. And I've walked into quite a few organizations where there was only one designer, and then I come in and I'm kind of extra. They're expanding their department and I need someone else. It's happened quite a few times. And I like this because I have, first of all, someone who's experienced who can kind of help guide me. Responsibilities are shared, so vacation is much easier. And you can bounce ideas off of each other. You're not just the lone wolf sitting there wondering if what you're creating, it looks good, makes sense. It's just the human connection piece, and having someone who also does what you do in a job can be really satisfying. And I don't know if enough people really think about this, because I've seen a lot of people go into roles where they're the only one doing and executing their role, their position, what they have to do, and it drags them down, especially if they like collaboration. If they're just sitting there lonely, in Photoshop all day, it maybe doesn't work out so well. So think about those things. Don't ignore the red flags. And I encourage you guys, if you have a crazy job interview story, please send it to me. I've got a few more lined up for you for sure. And yeah, if you see someone putting on their makeup in your job interview, I say, don't walk, run. Take care, guys. Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. Be sure to follow this podcast, visit alanarosa.com, and of course, share it so we can build each other up. And before I go, remember to be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.